Hello, everyone. My name is Zelitical, and thank you so very much for uh, joining us today. Sorry, I have to add, I'm a lady, I have to add my lip gloss. I decided to actually show my face this time to see if this makes any difference. But as you can see from the title, today we are going to be talking about motherhood, marriage, and guess what else? The trap of having it all, right? So, what made me think about this is I was just thinking about, well, first of all, I was watching The Gilded Age. If you've never seen it, it's on HBO Max and it takes place in 1880s New York, right? And it's, the lives of the women and men of the elite in New York at this time period, like I said, 1880. And, something that I found very interesting was clearly at this time, the feminism movement has yet to happen. Um, we, in America, at this time, we are still living in the shadows um, of England, right? This is soon after the emancipation of slaves. This is soon after or a couple years, um, like 100 years after the what is the war? The Revolutionary War. Sorry. Um, and it was very interesting to see how different but yet similar things were for women at that time period, right, versus today. And it made me think. It made me think about marriage. It made me think about motherhood. It made me think, how in 2026, how do women win, right? How do we have it all? How do we live a life worth living and give advice to the younger generations without making things seem lighter than what they are, without making things seem easier than what they are? Then I want to get into that today. So I don't have much time, but I do want to hit some good points. So the first thing I want to talk about, let's talk about marriage, right? And this idea of marriage equals security, right? And I look at it as a trap in a sense, right? Now, here's the thing. Historically, right, marriage was sold to us as women as financial and physical protection. But is that still true today in 2026, right? Once again, this is what is it? Post feminism. This is post civil rights movement, right? Women have the right to vote. Women have the right to have their own credit, to own their own homes, to do, what we want. Excuse me. But yet, we are still under this guise, or working under the guise that being married is going to provide you some financial stability. And how is that true in today when women are now primarily either the breadwinner or the co-breadwinner in their household, right? And what does protection look like for women in 2026? It's interesting, right? Because going back to the Gilded Age, the TV show, at that time, for a woman, you needed to be married to a man in order to be held in any type of regard or esteem. But unless you were rich, you would have to still work. You would still have to take care of the household. You still had all of the same responsibilities, yet with less money, right? And how, even then, it's like, once again, if you're not rich, what are the benefits of marriage for women, right? And if, as a woman, if you are also the breadwinner in your household, and you're still looked at as, as still being responsible for all the womanly duties, like what is then the benefit of us being married and having children to begin with, right? um and here's the thing too, right? As we know, when you are let's just say you are in a situation where you are dependent on your husband, that financial dependency could easily lead into coercion or being in a controlling marriage. And, I used to think that, well, you just have to find a good man. But even if you have the best man in the world, it is still human nature for people to want to not necessarily take advantage, but take advantage of the people that they have control over, right? Because if this man is the breadwinner of the household and you cannot make it without him, why would he continue to maintain this level of grace, extend this level of grace to you if he doesn't have to? You get what I mean? And so many women find themselves in a position where you fall in love, you love each other, you guys are growing old together, you create a family together. But because now, if you, let's just say you gave up your ambitions to be with your man, now you're stuck, right? Or maybe you didn't give up your ambitions and you still continue to go forward, but if your husband is still looking towards you to maintain your womanly or wifely duties, are you really winning? Right? What's the point? It's kind of like it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? Type of thing. And it's very sickening. But let's move on. Now, let's talk about motherhood, right? Right? The penalty of motherhood versus the child free stigma, right? Something that I've noticed once I became a mother is that you no longer matter. No one cares about you, right? Whether they mean to do that on purpose or not, it's the fact that once you become a mom, like even your body, right? When you're pregnant, you're not the priority, it's the baby. Your body will literally take the energy and the nutrients from your body to supply it to that baby to bring that baby to full term, right? And as a woman, mentally, that can really mess you up and make you realize that, I chose to bring this child into this world, and now my world no longer cares about me. And, that can really make you feel away. You get what I mean? It can really make you feel away because it's like, especially if you're someone that is ambitious, what does me having children have to do with my ambition? What does me having children have to do with me, right? Once you birth them, they're no longer a part of you, right? So why is it that my whole life is now dictated by the children that I conceived, right? And it's interesting because even in the workplace, it's like people make it seem as though, and keep in mind, I'm a woman, I am a mother who prioritizes my family first, but that does not mean that I cannot do work and I can't make things happen, right? It doesn't mean that I can like that my brain stops working. You get what I mean? Um and it's just like the old structure of work where it's like, or even the old ideas that, children shouldn't be around, and like, oh, you're supposed to be 100% dedicated to your job 100% of the time, which is unrealistic, right? um who wouldn't want that life? But hey, people do it and people want it, right? um and I've noticed that even when you're like applying to jobs and you mention that you have children, it's like, what the hell? Like, people have kids, like, right? That is a part of life. It's almost as if when you become a mother, there's like an expectation that a mother should be a martyr, right? Like, you are giving your life away to your children and family. When Why does that always have to be the case? Why can't I, be a mother, be great at that, but also be a killer in the boardroom? Why do those two things have to be mutually exclusive? Right? But then on the other hand, if you choose to not have any children, then it's automatically you're super selfish, right? And I used to feel this way in a certain aspect because I do think it is, right? You are selfish, but being selfish in itself, I personally don't think is inherently bad, because especially as women, if you are not a little selfish, people will walk all over you and drag you through the mud and make you do every and anything they want you to do. And you don't have time for that. We don't have time for that, right? And I do think that, having children in itself is not in itself is not inherently going to fulfill you. I do not believe that having children in itself is inherently good, right? Because guess what? If you are not built to be a mother and to give yourself to your children, guess what, baby girl? You're going to be miserable, and being miserable is not good for your children, right? Now, I do believe that, how can I put this? I do believe coupling up, being together and like creating families is an amazing thing, and especially in the Black community is extremely important. However, I do believe that for women it is imperative that you protect yourself. You always have to make sure that you are in a position where you are always going to be okay, and the only way you can do that, in my personal opinion, women need to stick together. Because once again, no matter how great and amazing your man is, he is still a man, and men are going to do what men do. Men are always going to need to feel as if they are above someone and something, right? And it can be hard. It's hard and it's difficult because, you can love who you're with and they can love you, but guess what? Get down. But guess what? Guess what? Anyone can have a bad day, and anyone can be um like, it takes a very, very strong person to have to walk in high integrity 100% of the time. No one's perfect and no one's God, right? No man is, he's just a man, right? So we have to be mindful of those things. I'll leave that there because I don't have too much time, but I want to just touch on these different topics. And please like, comment, share, and subscribe. These are very important topics, and I think a lot of us can relate to it. A lot of us can, you know, we feel it and we don't know what to do. We don't know what's right and what's wrong. And I do think that you can't paint everyone's life with a broad stroke, right? Because even for me, I have children and I am with my partner, and you know, to say that I'm unhappy, it would be untrue, because I'm very happy and I don't regret anything. However, I do see how, if you allow it, motherhood and marriage can hold you back. You have to be extremely strong, extremely determined, extremely ambitious in order to push through the natural societal norms that are placed upon us. Okay? Now, let's see. So something else I wanted to talk about is, because I was going to bring up like whether, is it good to be single versus not. And you know what? Let's talk about that. We could talk about that for a few minutes. So, being single versus being with someone, it's a very interesting topic, right? Because I do think, especially in times like now, being single is extremely expensive. Everything is expensive, and having to take on a life, cut it out. Having to take on a life and trying to do everything on your own is extremely hard, and it's lonely, right? However, I think some people are meant to be single and just live their lives, and there's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with that. But I do think, especially as women, you need to be very mindful of long term, right? Be forward thinking. Do you really want to be single for the rest of your life? Because guess what? This is what's going to happen. All your girlfriends are going to be like, "Oh yeah, F that man. Oh, we're going to be single together." Da, 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 da. But guess what, baby girl? Everyone's going to find somebody. Everyone's going to start their own families. Everyone's going to live their own lives, right? Are you genuinely, inherently, deep down in your soul, okay with being alone? That's a question that you have to ask yourself, and I'll leave that there, right? And I also think that, being single, like sometimes we look at it as like a waiting room for waiting for a husband, right? Waiting for your man to come along. And what if you just don't want that? What if you just want to be by yourself? And I think there's, like, once again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but you have to be mindful of what comes along with it, because um once we are I'm sorry, I just got an email that threw me off. You just need to be honest with yourself, because I don't, like I said, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being single, with being alone, but I think you do need to be mindful of what comes along with that, right? Because if you are trying to date and well, that's a different conversation, I guess. If you're just know that, like, everyone else around you is probably going to go off and have a life of their own, and they may or may not have time for you. You have to be okay with that. And what are you going to do to fill up your time? I want this to be a conversation at where us as women come along and we talk about things, and we don't have to um it's a free space, right? It's a safe space. We can talk about things, we can ask questions, and we don't necessarily have to have the answers, right? But it's important for us to actually think things through and really dig deep, right? So, I also want to talk about the career and housework paradox, because I have to leave soon, right? This is where, this idea where, when you're at work, you're supposed to work like you don't have children, but when you're at home, it's the invisible labor, right? The washing of the dishes, the clothes, sweeping the floor, cleaning the bathroom, all the things that no one notices, when it's getting done, right? But when it's not getting done, oh, well, where's mama? You know? Um I am extremely passionate about changing the way that we work in 2026 going forward. I am so happy and proud of the feminism movement, because it allowed women to have the autonomy to do what we want. However, it did not take into account the differences between man and woman. Yes, we should be equal under the law. However, we are different. We have differences, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? We have a time of the month every month. We have the abilities to have children, right? We have hormones that are not are that can sometimes be with outside of our control, right? And guess what? The medical industry does not take into account women when we are doing research. Are they researching women, or are they just researching men and just applying that to women? Our bodies and structures are completely different, and we need to I think it's important for us to take that into account. And these are things that men will never have to deal with. These are things that make our lives harder. But yet we are here striving to get the validation of who? A man? They're not built how we're built, right? Like for me, for example, I've had with my two kids, I had a fourth degree tear, and then I had a C-section, and still bounced back and went back to school and finished my schooling, right? And most men would not be able to do that. If you don't know what a fourth degree tear is, go Google it, right? And most men would not be capable of going through those things, but guess what? It makes you stronger, right? I'm built for tough. You can't break me, right? And these are things that are transferable skills into the workplace. However, why is it that I am expected to just completely neglect my family that is equally, if not more important than my job? Right? Why can I not be passionate about both? Why is there an expectation that I have to neglect one thing in order to be fully invested into the other? It just doesn't make any sense to me, because guess what? People have children. People have families, right? And how dare an institution expect for you to neglect the family that may be the motivation for you to even be working the job that you're working, right? To be going as hard as you're going for money. You want me to sell myself out for money when my children are going to be by my side when I die, right? My children are going to be by my side when I'm old and weak and have no one, right? Your job's not going to be there, right? So you have to look at these things as an investment. However, right, when we come home, there's still a mental load, right? The invisible work that women still have to do, whether it's planning, scheduling, the emotional labor, right? When one of my sons got sick, he got sick with the flu. I had to get off of work and take care of him. He didn't want his daddy, he wanted his mama. And guess what? That I literally broke down the day I had to go back to work and drop him off at school, because it was just like I knew my baby wasn't feeling well, but yet it's just a lot, and he was crying and just and it took everything out of me. I had to carry that. He didn't, right? And that's not to pit each other against each other, but it's the facts and it's reality, right? Now my question is to hurry this up. Now 5 minutes. How do we win in 2026? Right? As women, how do we win? How do we push our agenda forward? How do we make sure that, we are protected? One of the things I was thinking about is financial autonomy. I honestly believe the only way for us as women to be really free is if we have our own money, we have our own income. And I don't think it always has to be a lot, but you need something. You need your own nest egg. You need your own ability to create and grow something from the ground up, right? And and this is what we're going to call it. The FU fund, right? If your man or whoever you're with is getting too carried away, you need to be able to have that some money tucked away so you can say, you know what, F you and F this, right? And I do think that it's also nearly almost equally as important to build community. We as women need to have each other's back, right? We need a village, right? Whether it's friends, family, people that we can depend on if something bad was to happen, right? Like if you were to break up with your man, where would you go? Who would have your back? Who's your ride or die? You know what I mean? And lastly, we need to learn how to say no. Why are we, when I talk to women so many times, whether it's at work, in business, friendships, whatever, it's like I'm always hearing, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Sorry for what? Sorry for being here? Sorry for taking up space? Don't stop saying sorry. You don't need to be apologetic for being yourself, for being here, for being who you are. But you also need to learn how to say no, right? Why stop trying to be the good girl, right? The sweet lady. Stop being agreeable. Think about it. Where did it being agreeable get you? Most people don't even like agreeable people. We like people that set boundaries. We like people that tell us no, that set the expectations, right? That's what people like. That's what we want. No to extra work. No. I have children. I'm not working past 5 or whatever the case may be. No, I'm not working on the weekend. What is going on to where we cannot get the work done between Monday and Friday between 9 and 5 p.m.? You get what I mean? And a lot of times what you'll realize is that it's just because people are trying to take advantage of you. And this is where I'm at in my life, right? I am at the stage where I am learning to say no, because guess what? No one else has your back more than you're going to have your own back, right? I'm learning the importance of financial autonomy, because guess what? If that man tries to throw stuff in your face and you're, you know what? Who you think you're talking to? And I think you need to have that energy whether he's paying for you or not, right? Because like I said, the power of no. Stop being agreeable. Just because someone is taking care of you does not mean that financially does not mean you are not also taking care of them. Just because someone else is paying your bills does not mean, right, that you're not adding any other value in any other capacity. Don't forget, most of these men cannot live without us. Okay. And I do believe that feminism has done women a slight disservice by making us believe that our goals for women should be that we are equal to men. No, 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 no. We were never equal to men. Why are we looking towards men for validation? Why are we looking to be and do what men do? We are not men. We are women. Women do different things. We have different strengths. And guess what? A lot of us are the breadwinners. A lot of us are making it in the corporate world or in the business world, right? It is so important for us to have each other's backs. It is important for us to know our worth and to know our value and to stop comparing yourself to a man. Because guess what? Like I said, there are so many things that women go through that men will never understand and will never go through. They're not built the same. They're not. And I think we need to continue this. So, with that being said, thank you so much. I hope you guys like seeing my pretty face, and maybe I'll start doing videos like this more often, right? My goal for this year 2026, I am going to be posting a video a week. And maybe I'll start posting some different type of content, right? Whatever that may look like. But I want to start a conversation. Now, speaking about babies, I gotta go get mine. But I hope everyone has a blessed day. And if you guys have any insights or any opinions, make sure you leave it down below. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. And like I said, this is the Zelytical channel. This is what we were talking about today. I'm happy we were able to rub a couple brain cells together. And I hope you guys have a beautiful and amazing day. Deuces.